YNW camp has got the whole rap game shaken with the serious drama.
I will adjudicate you guilty, sentence you to 10 years in Florida State Prison.
Word on the street is that Bortlen just threw his own day one under the bus with a plea deal that's left YNW Melly staring down some serious time. Loyalty just died in broad daylight, and this betrayal might have sealed Melly's fate for life behind bars. Melly's already nightmarish situation just got even worse, all thanks to his so-called brother Bortlen choosing to save himself. Instead of standing tall, he took 16 years over loyalty, and now Melly's looking at the very real possibility of spending the rest of his life in a concrete cage. But let's rewind and break down how we even got here. Back on October 26, 2018, two rappers from the YNW collective were gunned down in what prosecutors say was an execution-style hit. Anthony YNW Sack Chaser, Williams just 21, and Christopher YNW Juvie. Thomas Jr. only 19 were found shot multiple times inside a rented Dodge Journey in Miramar, Florida. Here's where things take a dark turn. Prosecutors claim Melly and his childhood friend Bortlen were the ones who pulled the triggers. Surveillance showed the four leaving the studio together that night. The state painted a chilling picture. Melly in the back seat allegedly opening fire on his own crew, unloading up to 10 shots at close range, while Bortlen sat behind the wheel, and it didn't stop there. Instead of rushing to get help, prosecutors say they drove around with the bodies for over 2 hours, staging the scene to look like a rival gang's drive-by. They even shot into the car from outside to sell the story. Eventually, they brought the victims to Memorial Regional Hospital, but by then it was too late.
So this resting angle in this seat, you have the projectile coming in, exiting through the top of the skull, and then continuing through the windshield. Christopher Thomas was already deceased when these rounds were coming into the back of the vehicle, because Christopher Thomas was what we would call crumbling. He was starting to fall, if you will. On top of that, I know that he was already deceased because the back of his back, essentially, the rounds that are in his back, have no blood in them. My determination was that this is not a drive-by shooting. The shooter's at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in.
The evidence stacked against Melly was thick enough to choke on GPS data, put them right at the scene. Ballistic reports tied shell casings to a gun linked directly to Melly's surveillance. Footage caught key moments in cell phone. Records proved there was no outside shooter. But even with all that heat, Melly's defense team found a crack in the armor that almost saved him when the arrest came down on February 13, 2019. Both Melly and Bortlen were hit with identical charges, 2 counts of first-degree murder. If convicted, they were looking at life without parole, maybe even the death penalty. The prosecution wasn't playing games. Melly's defense, though, had a strategy that seemed bulletproof on paper. When his first trial kicked off in October 2022, they built their case on one key argument. Melly wasn't even in the car when the shooting went down. They claimed it was a real drive-by from unknown rivals pointing to bullet trajectories that supposedly showed fire from outside the vehicle. That alibi was everything, and it actually worked to some degree. In July 2023, the trial ended in a mistrial after the jury deadlocked reportedly 9-3 or even 10-2 in favor of acquittal. For a moment, it looked like Melly might actually beat the case. The state had evidence, but his lawyers managed to plant enough reasonable doubt about whether he was really in that car.
Look, man, I just put these together. He messed with the stole for you? He like, he kind of like switched around, like an issue with he just, you were, nah, he just came out of that, you know what I'm saying?
That defense strategy looked like solid gold until September 9th, 2025, when it all came crashing down thanks to Melly's own co-defendant. That's the day Bortlen walked into the Broward County courthouse and accepted a plea deal that had been sitting on the table since September 4th. Instead of gambling on 5 potential life sentences, he took the safer route, a no-contest plea to accessory after the fact and witness tampering. His deal landed him 10 years in prison, followed by 6 years of probation, 16 years of supervision in total, a massive downgrade from life behind bars. But it came at the ultimate cost, throwing his day one under the bus.
And it's my understanding that you want to resolve both cases today. Is that correct? And that resolution is an agreement you reached with the state, the terms of which are as follows. Number 1, in the 19 case, we're going to plead no contest to both counts of accessory after the fact. In the 23 case, you're going to plead no contest to all 4 counts as charged. In exchange for that, the state is going to null process, that is, drop the 2 first-degree murder cases. All right? I'm going to adjudicate you guilty. Yes, sir?
Finalizing the plea deal agreement, the judge goes in state.
And state is the same terms that you discussed previously, or is there anything different?
No, Your Honor, that
So the pre-forms to me look like in the 19th case as to the 2 counts of accessory after the fact, as well as to all 4 counts. The 23 case, these are going to be adjudications, 10 years Florida State Prison, followed by, let's say, 6 years probation. 6 years probation. All counts will run concurrently, all sentences run concurrently with one another.
But here's the kicker that's got everybody calling Bortlen a snake. As part of his deal, he had to give a sworn proffer to prosecutors laying out exactly what went down. And that proffer reportedly confirms what Melly's been denying all along, that he was inside the vehicle when the shots were fired. That single detail destroys the entire core defense that saved Melly in his first trial. Now, prosecutors don't just have circumstantial evidence, they've got an eyewitness account from the alleged driver, himself pointing the finger straight at Melly. When the bullets started flying,
I ain't telling about no small. I can do 5 to 10 years, but 20 to life, boy, yeah, going down, boy. I ain't telling about no small. I don't know about that. I don't know what you everybody knew.
what makes this betrayal hit even harder is the timing. Bortlen's own trial was set to begin the very next day when he suddenly took the deal. He held out until the absolute last second, probably hoping his defense could somehow hold up, then folded like a cheap tent the moment reality set in.
I will sentence you as follows. In case number 19, 1871 CF10A, that's to count 3 and count 4. I will adjudicate you guilty, sentence you to 10 years in Florida State Prison.
Proffer sessions usually run 1 to 2 hours, where prosecutors and agents dig for every detail. In Bortlen's case, that meant breaking down exactly what happened that night and confirming Melly's presence in the car. The streets lit up instantly, with snitching allegations, but this one hit harder, because these weren't just co-defendants. These were childhood friends from Gifford, Florida guys who came up together in the rap game. Victim's attorney John M. Phillips tweeted, as predicted, Bortlen took the plea. He agreed to a proffer, which means he's talking. That single statement sent shockwaves through hip-hop and street culture. Giving up info on your day one is the ultimate violation of the code. What made it sting even more was the timing. Bortlen signed the deal just hours before his trial was set to begin. He held out until the very last minute, then folded when faced with the reality of life sentences. The rap community went ballistic. Tekashi 6ix99, who knows a thing or two about being labeled a snitch, posted, YNW Bortlen accepted his plea. YNW Melly is cooked. Coming from him, that hit different. Immediately, comparisons to Gunna's controversial 2022 Alford plea in the YSL case started flying social. Media flooded with memes calling it the Gunna plea, and hashtags like YNW Bortlen snitch trended with over 500,000 mentions. Fans blasted him with posts like 16 years ain't worth snitching on your brother, and even gave him the nickname, YNW Snitchlin. The betrayal cut deep because YNW always projected an image of unshakable loyalty and brotherhood. That image shattered the moment one of their own caved, potentially locking Melly away forever. Legal analyst SG Batman summed it up best. This impacts Melly's trial. Bortlen folded, and just like that, the hip-hop world was forced to re-examine what loyalty really means in this game. FNs immediately split down the middle. Some argued Bortlen had no choice, while others said he should have stayed solid and fought the case alongside his day one. The backlash only grew after Bortlen's attorney Fred Haddad made a bold statement. I don't represent snitches. Cortland Henry is not a snitch, and he will not be cooperating or testifying in Melly's trial. But the damage was already done. Everyone knew the proffer requirement meant Bortlen had to walk prosecutors through what happened that night, and that info was guaranteed to be used against Melly. The legal implications are massive. Prosecutors now have a sworn account from the alleged driver himself to back up their evidence. Can line up Bortlen's proffer with the ballistics, showing 14 shots fired from inside the vehicle, the hospital. Footage that showed no external damage consistent with a drive-by, and most importantly, an eyewitness placing Melly in the car from the shooting to the staged cover-up. The timing couldn't be worse for Melly. He's been stuck in Broward County jail since February 2019, and his retrial, already delayed, has now been pushed to January 2027. With Bortlen's statement filling the gaps that led to the first mistrial, Melly's chances of walking free just dropped dramatically as of September 10th, 2025. Melly has spent 2,445 days, over 6.5 years behind bars without a conviction. That's longer than some people serve for actual sentences. His nightmare inside only gets darker, and the numbers tell the story. Back in January 2025, during a bond hearing, Judge John Murphy reminded him he'd been locked up 2,159 days. Melly's stunned reaction went viral. You could see the disbelief on his face as he realized how much of his life had been swallowed by a cell while his future hung in limbo. Now with his day one flipping, the world is watching to see if this was the final nail in the coffin for a rapper who once had it all, but may never breathe free air again.
We've now been sitting in our jail for 2,159 days. So, how long would you like to be able to make that decision?
I can't determine when the investigation will be over. That's up to the Broward Sheriff's Office, but I can, as I said, I'm just asking for you to determine whether or not we file any sort of motion to prevent the search warrant to be
I
taken.
just can't imagine legal grounds that would this particular.
Life inside Broward County Jail for someone like Melly is basically psychological torture, dressed up as legal procedure. He's housed in protective custody, which means 23 hours a day locked in a single cell that's about 6 to 9 FT. The only break he gets is 1 hour for recreation in a caged outdoor area or indoor gym. No mixing with general population, which reduces the risk of violence but cranks up the isolation to unbearable levels. The daily routine is mind-numbing. Breakfast. It slid through a slot in his cell door, usually something basic like cereal and fruit. Lunch and dinner are more of the same sandwiches, beans, rice, all eaten alone. In that tiny space, Melly's mother, Jaime, Demon's King, has complained about inconsistent access to clean clothes and basic hygiene supplies. The man gets 1 shower per week and has to buy soap and shampoo from commissary with money. His family deposits are what little he can earn cleaning. In an older clip, YNW, Melly's mother discusses communication issues with lawyers amid delays to 2026, stating that she is emotional.
So the thing is, I'm a little emotional because I just found out, when all of you just found out, about his trial being delayed to 2026, I guess. And I guess because of that, they are not communicating with me. So I don't know what's going on in his case. And Janelle still has no phone calls, and he has no communication whatsoever. And I'm sure he doesn't know that I don't know what decisions they're making and things that they're doing. And at this point, I don't know.
The visitation situation is heartbreaking. Since CO protocols kicked in, Melly's been limited to 30 in-ute video calls weekly with family. No in-person visits, just staring at his mother through a screen, while phone calls cost over $10 for 15 minutes. And every conversation gets monitored. When he does see his family during court appearances, the emotional reunions hit different. Like in June 2025, when he tried to show emotion to his mother after 20 days locked up, the medical situation inside. Broward County Jail is straight-up neglect disguised as healthcare. Melly filed a federal lawsuit in February 2024, seeking over $1 million in damages for what he calls cruel and unusual punishment. The details are disturbing. He had a broken hand that went untreated for months, severe dental pain with an abscessed tooth that got extracted without proper anesthesia, and mental health medication that gets denied regularly. The facility itself is a nightmare. Broward County Jail has been under federal consent decree since 2013 for unconstitutional treatment, with reports of moldy cells, backed up toilets, contaminated food with undercooked meat, and rodent infestations. The heat is brutal because there's no full air conditioning in cells, and the constant noise from banging and yelling creates an environment designed to break people down mentally. What makes Melly's situation even more tragic is how the legal system keeps playing with his hope. Bond has been denied multiple times, with the most recent denial coming in May 2025 after 6 years behind bars. His defense team proposed house arrest with ankle monitoring and 24-hour bodyguards funded by his record label, but judges keep citing him as a flight risk and danger to the community based on witness tampering charges. The trial delays are psychological warfare at this point. His retrial was originally scheduled for multiple dates, but kept getting pushed back. and now it's set for January 2027. That means he could potentially hit 3,000 days over 8 years in custody before any verdict gets reached. For someone who was just 19 when he got arrested, he's watching his entire 20s disappear behind bars. The federal lawsuit he filed reveals the systematic abuse happening behind those walls. He alleged 23-hour solitary confinement, amounting to torture, denial of medical care for his broken hand, and dental issues, contaminated food with maggots in meals, black mold and showers, and excessive force by guards, including pepper spray incidents in 2022. The suit was partially dismissed in July 2025 because he has to exhaust state remedies first, but it shed light on conditions that would be considered inhumane for convicted prisoners, let alone someone still presumed innocent. The isolation has clearly taken its toll. Melly's mother told Complex in 2024 that he's changed, more withdrawn, citing nightmares and weight loss. Court videos show him getting emotional in ways that weren't there before, like that disbelief when hearing how many days he'd been locked up. The man who once had hits on the Billboard charts is now just trying to survive each day in a concrete box. His creative output has basically stopped while he managed to release albums like Melly vs. Melvin in 2020 using pre-recorded vocals. The well has run dry in 2025 with no new music releases. The silence is deafening for someone who used music as his voice to the world. Social media campaigns like #FreeMelly still trend periodically, but the momentum has slowed as years drag on without resolution. What's really messed up is how his legal team keeps changing. He fired his attorneys in August 2025 and hired Drew Finley, who previously represented NBA Young. Boy, part of this was because his previous lawyer was under criminal investigation, but it also shows how desperate the situation has become. When you're switching legal teams this deep into a case, it usually means things aren't going according to plan. The psychological impact of this extended pretrial detention is something the justice system rarely acknowledges. Melly went from being a rising star with millions of streams to counting days on a calendar watching his youth slip away. While waiting for a trial that keeps getting postponed, the man is aging out of his prime years in a cell, missing out on career opportunities, family moments, and basic human experiences that most people take for granted. Now with Bortlen's plea potentially sealing his fate, the nightmare behind bars might be far from over. If convicted in January 2027, Melly would face life without parole or potentially the death penalty. Even if he somehow beats the case, he'll have spent nearly a decade of his life in pretrial detention. Either way, the damage is already done. His youth, his career momentum, and his mental health have all been casualties of a system that's supposed to be about justice, but often feels more like prolonged punishment. Before any verdict is even reached, Melly's criminal past and rap war history exposed. Let's keep it real about Melly's background, because this man's criminal history reads like a cautionary tale about how the streets can derail talent before it fully blooms. His trouble started early when he was just 16 years old, getting arrested for allegedly firing shots into a crowd outside Vero Beach High School. Nobody got hurt, but he caught 4 charges, 3 felonies for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 misdemeanor for discharging a firearm in public. This incident got him expelled and led to homeschooling, setting the tone for how his life would unfold. The pattern kept repeating itself like a broken record. While on probation from that 2015 case, Melly got violated in January 2017 for associating with felons and possessing a firearm. He caught charges for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and got sentenced to a year in jail. It was during this stretch behind bars that he wrote parts of his breakout single Murder on My Mind, which became both his claim to fame and potential evidence against him in the current case. The irony is thick because that song, released in 2017 while he was locked up, contains lyrics about killing someone and regretting it. Critics and anti-violence advocates accused him of glamorizing homicide, especially after the 2018 murders. When Murder on My Mind peaked at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100, it created this twisted situation where his success was built on content that prosecutors now use as evidence of his mindset. Just months after getting out in March 2018, Melly and Bortlen got arrested again in June 2018 during a traffic stop in Lee County, Florida. This time it was possession of a weapon by a convicted felon and possession of marijuana. The man couldn't stay out of trouble for 6 months, which shows how deep he was in that lifestyle, even as his music career was taking off. But the real drama started when Melly tried to make moves in the industry and ran into some serious opposition. The most publicized beef happened at Atlantic Records' New York offices around June-July 2018, when he got jumped by NBA Youngboy and Quando Rondo, during a label meeting. This wasn't just a regular rap beef. It was rooted in gang rivalries between Melly's alleged Bloods ties and Youngboy's Baton Rouge crew connections. The details of that Atlantic Records beatdown paint a picture of how street politics can follow you anywhere. Melly, who was just 19 at the time, reportedly got punched and kicked in the hallway while trying to sign a deal. YW Sackchaser later discussed the fight in a video that became evidence at trial, calling out Youngboy's group for ambushing them. After getting worked over, Melly reached out to allies like Ting Von and Fredo Bang for backup, which escalated the whole situation into a proxy war. The aftermath of that beating shows how violence breeds more violence in this culture. Youngboy never directly dissed Melly in lyrics, but threw shade at Florida Ops in tracks like Vet, which fans connected to the incident. Wando Quando Rondo referenced it in End of Story with lines about jumping someone's brother, while Melly fired back subtly and slang that iron talking about haters trying to knock him off his grind. What made this beef even more dangerous was how it connected to larger street politics. Melly's alleged ties to G-Shine Bloods put him at odds with multiple crews across different regions. When you add in the fact that his rising fame was creating jealousy within his own YNW crew, it created a perfect storm of conflicts that allegedly led to the October 2018 murders. The mental health angle adds another layer to this whole mess. In 2019, Melly claimed he has dissociative identity disorder, alleging an alter ego named Kevin committed violent acts, including the murders. His mother supported this narrative, pointing to childhood trauma and drug use. The defense tried to get a competency evaluation in 2022, but it got denied. Critics called it a sympathy play, while supporters saw it as a genuine cry for help. Prosecutors have painted the YNW crew as a criminal gang affiliated with Bloods, citing 123 text messages linking Melly to G-Shine Bloods. During the 2023 trial, gang evidence was introduced showing connections to rivals and internal disputes. This wasn't just about music. It was about territory, respect, and money in a world where those things can get you killed. The rap community's reaction to the murder allegations shows how divided opinions can get when someone's talent conflicts with their alleged actions. Kendrick Lamar referenced Melly in Euphoria during his Drake beef, saying, "If not, I'm YW Melly," implying betrayal of friends, when Melly responded saying he was honored but appalled at the backhanded compliment. It showed how even top-tier artists view his situation as symbolic of disloyalty in rap crews. Kevin Gates made indirect comments about the case on The Breakfast Club, saying, "Killing friends? That's snake behavior. No real one does that when discussing lyrics and real-life violence." Meanwhile, Boozy Badass tweeted in 2019, "Pray for Melly, but if he did it, that's cold. Family first, no cap. RIP to the fallen YNW." Showing how even supportive voices had reservations. The betrayal element hits different because of how tight the YNW collective appeared to be. These weren't just business associates. Sackchaser and Juvie were aspiring rappers who came up with Melly from the same Florida streets. When allegations surfaced that internal disputes over money from Melly's rising fame led to paranoia and violence, it showed how success can poison relationships that seemed unbreakable. DJ Academics amplified the outrage in viral videos, calling the situation proof that loyalty is dead in rap. Social media has been brutal, with posts like Daily Reminder, YNW Melly murdered his childhood friends, getting thousands of interactions. The court of public opinion has largely convicted him based on the evidence presented, even though the legal system hasn't reached a final verdict. The paternity drama with Dante Thift Taylor claiming to be Melly's father in 2019 added another layer of controversy. Taylor demanded DNA tests and shaded Melly's lyrics about growing up without a father, calling them fake stories for sympathy. While it didn't escalate into a full beef, it showed how personal issues can become public ammunition when you're already under scrutiny. What makes this whole situation even more tragic is how Melly's criminal history and alleged gang ties overshadowed his actual musical talent. Songs like Mixed Personalities with Kanye West showed his potential to reach mainstream success, but the 2018 murders derailed everything and turned his art into evidence against him. Now his legacy is more about what he allegedly did to his friends than what he could have contributed to hip-hop culture. The street code violations keep piling up. In this case first, there were allegations that Melly killed his own crew members over money and jealousy. Now Bortlen's plea deal adds another layer of betrayal to the story. The rap community is watching this case not just for the legal outcome, but as a cautionary tale about how the streets can consume everything: talent, friendship, loyalty, and ultimately lives. Whether Melly gets convicted or not, The damage to his reputation in the YNW legacy is already done serving, as a reminder that in the game of streets and rap, everybody loses eventually. That's all for today, fam. If you enjoyed watching this video and wouldn't mind more of such content, make sure to click on the card showing on the screen.